The message came in 6 words that shattered my world. Your daughter is in intensive care. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The sterile hospital air burned my lungs as the receptionist's voice echoed through my mind. Just 30 minutes earlier, I'd been wheeling my suitcase through the door of my Chicago home, still carrying the scent of Parisian coffee and sea salt from the Mediterranean. I had planned to surprise my daughter Olivia with European chocolates and a leather bag from Florence. Instead, I found an unopened envelope leaning against my doorframe, one from Northwestern Memorial Hospital, collecting dust for nearly a week. 6 days. That's how long my only child had been fighting for her life, while I was blissfully taking selfies beside the Trevi fountain. I barely remember the drive to the hospital. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. When I finally reached the ICU reception desk, the woman behind the counter spoke with professional calm that made my panic feel louder. Mrs. Thompson was admitted 6 days ago following a severe auto accident, she said. 6 days. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear her next words. Would you like to see her now? My name is Rebecca Harrison, and nothing could have prepared me for the sight that awaited me in room 412. My daughter lay amid a web of tubes and machines, her once bright face bruised and swollen, her right arm encased in plaster, her leg elevated on pillows. The rhythmic hiss of the ventilator was the only sound breaking the sterile silence. I reached for her unbandaged hand. It was cool to the touch, lifeless in mine. I'm here, baby, I whispered. Mom's here now. The nurse beside me, a kind woman named Linda, adjusted monitors with practiced hands. She's been stable for the past 48 hours, she explained. That's a good sign. My throat felt dry as I asked, what exactly happened? Linda's voice softened. Her husband was driving. The car was traveling around 90 miles per hour when it struck a concrete divider. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt. My knees nearly gave out. And Blake, I forced myself to ask. Minor injuries, she said quietly. He was treated and released that same night. We haven't seen him since. Released. The word stabbed through me. My daughter lay broken and unconscious, and her husband, the man who vowed to love her in sickness and in health, had simply walked away. Something cold and sharp took root inside me that moment. It wasn't grief. It was resolve. After Linda left, I took Olivia's hand again. Listen to me, sweetheart, I murmured. I don't know what happened, but I'm going to find out. And whoever hurt you, whoever failed you, will answer for it. I opened my phone and stared at Blake's contact photo, the smiling man who had married my daughter 8 months earlier. The perfect husband, charming and ambitious, the one who had promised to take care of her always. I sent a short message. Blake, I'm at Northwestern with Olivia. Call me immediately. 3 hours passed. No response. Instead came silence thick and heavy, broken only by the mechanical rhythm of the ventilator. When Dr. Patel, the attending neurosurgeon, arrived, he explained Olivia's injuries in clinical detail: brain trauma, punctured lung, multiple fractures. She's young and strong, he said gently. That gives her a good chance. I nodded, clinging to the words good chance like a lifeline. When the doctor left, I examined the stack of documents Linda had given me: police reports, medical records, insurance forms. What I found made my blood run cold. Blake had been driving drunk. His blood alcohol level was 0.11 and possibly texting moments before the crash. He had nearly killed my daughter, then vanished. An officer named Ramirez came to speak with me later that night. We've been trying to contact your son-in-law for questioning, he said. He's not answering any calls. I could tell from his eyes that this was more than a simple accident. We believe he may have been distracted and intoxicated, he continued. There could be charges pending. When he left, I did what I do best. I began investigating. I had spent 30 years in finance trained to follow numbers, track patterns, find truth in data. I opened the banking app tied to the account I had set up for Olivia and Blake as their wedding gift. And there it was, a string of large withdrawals beginning the day after the accident. Hotel bills in Miami, restaurant tabs over $1,000, a yacht rental, cash withdrawals totaling $15,000. While my daughter lay unconscious, Blake had been on a luxury vacation spending her money. My hands trembled with fury as I scrolled through social media. I found him within minutes. A friend had tagged him in photos on a white yacht, champagne in hand, a woman in a bikini clinging to his arm. He looked relaxed, tanned, alive. The caption read, "Living the dream with the boys. Yacht life. Miami forever." That was the moment I stopped being just a terrified mother. I became something else entirely. A woman with purpose, with means, and with nothing left to lose. I called my banker, Timothy, and spoke in a calm, measured tone that once made grown executives flinch. "Freeze every account Blake Thompson has access to," I said, immediately. Timothy hesitated. "May I ask? My daughter is in intensive care because of him." I interrupted. "He's spending her money on a yacht with another woman. I want his world to stop tonight." Within minutes, he confirmed all accounts were frozen. As I hung up, I looked at Olivia, fragile, motionless, yet still breathing, and whispered, "I found him, sweetheart. And he's about to find out what happens when he betrays my daughter." Exactly 57 minutes after I froze Blake's accounts, my phone rang. His name flashed across the screen, and for the first time since arriving at the hospital, I allowed myself a thin, cold smile. "Rebecca Harrison." I answered evenly, as if this were just another business call. His voice came through slurred and frantic music and laughter echoing behind him. "Rebecca, what the hell is going on? My cards are being declined, every one of them." "How inconvenient for you," I said mildly, "especially since your wife is lying in intensive care on a ventilator." Silence. Then his voice softened, fake concern dripping through every syllable. "I can explain. The trip, it's not what it looks like. I just needed time to clear my head after the accident." "Clear your head," I cut in. "You were drinking, speeding, and texting when you nearly killed my daughter. She's fighting for her life, and you're drinking champagne on a yacht with another woman." He tried again, his tone shifting from pleading to defensive. "We're family, Rebecca. You don't understand." I panicked, all right. "You can't just freeze our accounts like that. It's my money too. No, Blake. It's Olivia's money. You only had access to it because she trusted you." His charm cracked. "You can't do this to me," he hissed. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Oh, I think I do," I said calmly. "The question is, do you—" Then I hung up. Moments later, my phone lit up again and again, calls, messages, threats, apologies. I silenced them all and turned back to Olivia. "Your husband has quite the temper," I murmured, brushing a strand of hair away from her bandaged forehead. "But he's about to learn what real consequences look like." The next morning, Linda brought hopeful news. Olivia's swelling had begun to subside, and her vital signs were steady. For the first time since stepping into that room, I felt a glimmer of hope. I thanked Linda, then opened my laptop to find an email from Timothy. Attached was a detailed report of every financial transaction Blake had made since the wedding. The pattern was unmistakable: small withdrawals at first, testing boundaries, followed by escalating purchases once he realized Olivia never checked closely. Designer clothing, weekend getaways, jewelry. The theft wasn't impulsive, it was systematic. And then I saw it: recurring transfers to an account under a woman's name I didn't recognize. Jennifer Sanderson, Tampa, Florida. My stomach twisted. Another woman. Before I could investigate further, Officer Ramirez called. "Mrs. Harrison," he said, his tone brisk but sympathetic. "I wanted to update you. Miami police made contact with your son-in-law early this morning. He's not under arrest yet, but the yacht company has filed a theft complaint. He tried to leave without paying the charter balance. So he's on the run, I asked flatly. For now, yes. We've flagged his passport and alerted local authorities. It's only a matter of time. After hanging up, I looked at Olivia, the faint rise and fall of her chest, matching the rhythm of the heart monitor. They're closing in on him, sweetheart, I whispered. Justice is coming. By late afternoon, another update arrived from Timothy. Blake had attempted multiple withdrawals at ATMs across Miami, all denied. Then he tried purchasing a one-way ticket to Cancun using a credit card in Olivia's name. We've frozen that one too, Timothy assured me. He's running out of options. I allowed myself a small, grim smile. The man who'd thought he could outsmart me was learning the cost of underestimating a mother with both fury and financial expertise. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the Chicago skyline outside the hospital window, I scrolled through Instagram again. Blake's friend Trent had posted another video, this one showing Blake mid-meltdown on the yacht, screaming into his phone, hurling a champagne glass at the wall. The caption read, "When the cards get declined and the party's over." I downloaded the video and sent it to Officer Ramirez with a short message, location confirmed. Yacht seized the day, Miami Harbor. The following morning, Linda greeted me with tired eyes and a smile. She's stable, Mrs. Harrison. That's good news. I nodded gratefully. And if a man named Blake Thompson calls or shows up, please contact security immediately, I added. He's not to have any contact with my daughter. After Linda left, I opened my laptop again. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I compiled every piece of evidence, bank statements, social media screenshots, phone records into a growing dossier. The old corporate strategist in me had reawakened. This wasn't grief anymore. It was a mission. Hours later, Timothy called once more. Rebecca, Miami police detained Blake at Key West this morning. He was trying to board a fishing boat bound for the Bahamas. The captain recognized him from social media and called authorities. He's being held on fraud and theft charges. I exhaled slowly, feeling a rare sense of peace. Thank you, Timothy. That's one less predator roaming free. When I returned to Olivia's bedside, the rhythmic whoosh of the ventilator seemed almost gentler. I took her hand and whispered, "They caught him, sweetheart. He can't hurt you anymore." That night, under the low hum of the ICU machines, I allowed myself to rest for the first time since I'd stepped off that plane. Blake Thompson's empire of lies was collapsing, and my daughter was still breathing. That was enough for now. By the next morning, sunlight streamed through the ICU blinds like a promise. Olivia's color had improved, and the doctors began discussing reducing her sedation within a few days. As I sipped bitter hospital coffee, I couldn't help but feel the smallest sliver of hope take root. My daughter was fighting, and I was fighting for her. Detective Morales from the Financial Crimes Unit arrived that afternoon, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a calm, unflinching manner. She listened carefully as I summarized everything: the spending spree, the yacht, the mistress, the attempted escape. Her pen moved steadily across her notepad. "You've done half our work for us," she said with quiet respect. "We've been tracking a man named Blake Thompson, also known under 2 other aliases, for a series of financial scams. Your evidence may tie him to interstate fraud." I handed her Timothy's report. "He transferred money regularly to women in multiple states," I explained. "One of them, Jennifer Sanderson, seems particularly close to him." Morales nodded. "We'll contact her. But you should also know something, Mrs. Harrison. Given the life insurance policy your daughter's husband took out 2 months after their wedding, $500,000 with double indemnity for accidental death. We can't rule out the possibility that this crash wasn't entirely accidental." For a moment, the air left my lungs. "You think he tried to kill her?" Morales didn't flinch. "It's a possibility. He's done similar things before women with assets, sudden accidents. Convenient disappearances afterward. If that's the case, your daughter may not be his first victim. That night, as I sat beside Olivia's bed, I replayed every memory of Blake I could recall. The charming smile, the easy compliments, the way he'd always taken charge when paying for dinner. He'd fooled us both. You weren't just unlucky in love. Sweetheart, I whispered. You were targeted. Days passed, each one blending into the next, filled with doctor's updates and quiet vigils. Then on the 5th night since his arrest, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I answered, expecting an update from Detective Morales, but it was a woman's trembling voice. Mrs. Harrison, you don't know me, but I think we need to talk about Blake Thompson. Who is this? I asked, immediately alert. My name is Melissa Winters. I was engaged to Blake 2 years ago, though he used the name Jason then. Her voice cracked. When I saw his face on the news about your daughter's accident, I froze. The same thing happened to me. I sat up straighter. You were in an accident. Yes. He took out a life insurance policy on me too. 3 weeks later, he crashed our car into a guardrail. He walked away without a scratch. I ended up in the hospital for months. Then he disappeared with my savings. I felt my pulse in my throat. Melissa, would you be willing to speak to the detectives handling his case? Your story could prove this wasn't a coincidence. That's why I'm calling, she said firmly. I couldn't let him hurt another woman. After we hung up, I immediately forwarded her information to Detective Morales. That night, I leaned close to Olivia's ear as the machines hummed around us. You're not alone in this anymore, sweetheart. There are others women like you, and I promise none of you will suffer in silence ever again. The next morning, Olivia's eyelids fluttered. At first, I thought I imagined it, but then her fingers twitched weakly around mine. I called for the nurse, my voice shaking. Dr. Patel confirmed it. She was beginning to emerge from sedation. It's a good sign, he said. Her brain is responding. For the next 2 days, I barely left her side. Every flicker of movement, every breath she took on her own felt like a miracle. Then on the evening of the 2nd day, a hoarse whisper broke the steady beeping of the monitors. Mom, I froze, then leaned forward, tears blurring my vision. I'm here, baby. You're safe. Her voice was faint, fragile, accident. Yes, I said softly. You've been in the hospital. You're going to be okay. Her brow furrowed as fragments returned. He was driving fast, arguing. Said I was holding him back. She winced, her breathing quickening. Then the lights. Nothing. My chest tightened. The truth was returning piece by painful piece. I squeezed her hand. It's all right, sweetheart. You don't have to remember everything right now. Over the next week, Olivia's progress astonished everyone. The ventilator was removed, her speech strengthened, and she began short sessions with physical therapy. But the emotional recovery was slower. When I told her about Blake's arrest and what we'd discovered the affair, the money, the lies, her tears came silently at first, then in waves. I thought he loved me, she whispered one afternoon, staring out the window. He never loved anyone, I said gently. He just saw opportunity. She turned to me, eyes red but determined. Then I want to face him. I want him to look at me and know I survived. Her strength both broke and healed me in that instant. My daughter had inherited my resolve, but she was stronger than I had ever been. 2 weeks later, Detective Morales arranged a controlled meeting at the courthouse, a recorded confrontation between Olivia and Blake. When they brought him in, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, the charming man who once fooled us both was gone. His arrogance flickered, then faltered entirely when he saw her alive, scarred but unbroken. Olivia's voice was steady. You told me I was holding you back, she said. But you're the one in chains now. He tried to protest, but she cut him off. You can't manipulate me anymore, Blake. You can't hurt me. I'm done being your victim. As the guards escorted him out, I saw something flicker across his face. Not guilt, not sorrow, but fear. And for the first time since that terrible phone call, I finally felt peace. 3 months after the crash, our dining room no longer resembled a home. It looked like a rehabilitation center. Exercise mats replaced rugs, resistance bands hung from the doorframe, and the elegant mahogany table where we once hosted family dinners had been pushed aside to make room for a pair of sturdy metal bars. Olivia gripped those bars like they were lifelines, sweat beading on her forehead as she forced one tentative step after another. Just 5 more, her therapist encouraged. She pushed through with a soft grunt, trembling but triumphant. When she finally reached the end of the bars, she looked at me and managed a small smile. That's 2 more than yesterday. Her resilience was breathtaking. Her body, though still healing, had become a map of endurance, each scar, each ache, a reminder of what she'd survived. But her spirit, once fragile, had evolved into something unbreakable. Where Blake's betrayal had once fractured her, she now radiated strength. And I, her mother, had learned to stand beside her not as a rescuer anymore, but as a witness to her rebuilding. That afternoon, while her therapist packed up equipment, I shared the latest call from Detective Morales. Blake's legal team wants a plea deal, I said carefully, setting down 2 glasses of water. Olivia's expression tightened. What kind of deal? They're offering guilty pleas for financial fraud and reckless endangerment in exchange for dropping the attempted murder charge, I said. If he accepts, he'll serve at least 8 to 12 years. She looked down at her hands, still trembling slightly from the workout. So he gets a decade in prison, and I get a lifetime of physical therapy. I hesitated, knowing the truth offered little comfort. Trials are unpredictable, I said gently. A plea means certainty. It means he's locked away and can't hurt anyone else. Her jaw clenched. Then tell them to take it. Later, when I called Morales to confirm our decision, she said, "You've done the right thing, Mrs. Harrison. The plea ensures a conviction. It's a solid victory. But I didn't feel victorious. Not yet." Olivia's progress continued in small, miraculous increments. Within weeks, she could walk with a lightweight cane. Her laughter returned, cautious but real. We spent afternoons in the garden, where she'd insist on watering plants herself, each motion deliberate and full of purpose. One morning she asked, "Do you ever wish you hadn't gone to Europe?" Her question struck deeper than she knew. Every day, I admitted. But if I hadn't left, I might never have seen who Blake truly was. She nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes the worst moments show us what we should have seen all along. When Blake's sentencing came a month later, Olivia chose not to attend. "He's had enough of my attention," she said. "I'd rather spend the day walking without a cane." So, while the courtroom buzzed with reporters and flashing cameras, my daughter was at home taking slow, steady steps down the garden path, each one a quiet act of defiance. That evening, I received the official message: 10 years in prison restitution, to be paid in full, and permanent registration as a financial offender upon release. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was enough. I forwarded the document to Olivia's tablet with a single note. "It's over," her reply came moments later. "Good. Let's move on." Move on we did. The months that followed were filled with healing, but also purpose. Olivia began therapy sessions not just for her body, but for her mind. She painted again, something she hadn't done in years. The canvases started dark and fractured, abstract reflections of pain and confusion. But slowly they brightened, splashes of light, breaking through the chaos. One evening, she showed me a new piece, a figure standing amid broken glass, bathed in sunlight. "I'm calling it awakening," she said softly. "It's not about what he did to me. It's about what came after." A year later, that same painting hung in the center of a gallery under the banner, "Fragments and Wholeness: A Journey Through Recovery" by Olivia Harrison. The opening night was crowded with art lovers, survivors, and supporters. Olivia moved through the space with her sleek titanium walker, confident and radiant. I watched from the back, tears blurring my vision as she spoke to the crowd. I once thought surviving was about returning to who I was before the accident, she told them. But it's not. It's about becoming someone new, stronger, freer, and unashamed of the scars that got me here. Applause filled the room. Reporters took notes. And I realized that this moment was the real verdict. After the event, she joined me by the main piece, the one inspired by her recovery. "You did all this," she said, her eyes shining. "No," I said, shaking my head. "You did. But you showed me how to fight without losing myself," she whispered. "That's something I'll never forget." As we left the gallery that night, a soft breeze swept through the city, carrying the scent of spring and renewal. Chicago's lights shimmered in the river below, reflecting the glow of a life reclaimed. Blake Thompson's name had already faded from headlines, replaced by Olivia's story of survival and art. Months later, we learned his appeal had been denied. I told Olivia over breakfast, expecting a reaction, but she only smiled faintly. "He doesn't matter anymore," she said. And she was right. He didn't. We traveled to Paris that summer, back to where my nightmare had begun. We sipped coffee by the Seine, laughed under streetlights, and sketched together on worn cobblestones. When a young woman approached to say she'd seen Olivia's interview online and left her abusive husband because of it, my daughter simply said, "You saved yourself." I just told my story. In that instant, I understood what survival truly meant. It wasn't revenge or punishment, it was transformation. Blake had taken so much, but he hadn't broken us. He had forged us. And as I looked at Olivia alive, free whole, I knew the real justice wasn't in the courtroom. It was standing right beside me. The courtroom was packed on the day of Blake Thompson's final sentencing appeal, a formality that would decide whether his conviction stood. Reporters filled every seat, their cameras waiting to capture the moment. I sat beside Olivia in the front row, her cane resting quietly against the bench. She looked fragile to strangers, but I knew the truth. She had walked through fire and come out forged in steel. When the judge entered, silence fell. His tone was calm but commanding. "Mr. Thompson, this court has reviewed overwhelming evidence of your crimes: fraud, identity theft, reckless endangerment, and financial exploitation. You endangered your wife's life in a high-speed crash, abandoned her in the ICU, and attempted to profit from her suffering. These actions reveal a pattern of predation this court cannot excuse. Therefore, your sentence of 25 years in Stateville Correctional Center is affirmed." The gavel struck like thunder. Blake's face drained of color. The cameras clicked in a frenzy as the guards moved to escort him out. Olivia's fingers found mine, trembling but steady. "It's really over," she whispered. Outside the courthouse, the press swarmed us. "Olivia, Mrs. Harrison, what do you want people to take from this?" My daughter paused on the steps, her voice strong and clear. "That you're never as powerless as someone wants you to believe. Trust your instincts. And if you've been hurt, stand up. Because surviving isn't weakness. It's the beginning of strength." Applause broke out as we stepped into the sunlight. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. 18 months later, I walked through the cold, sterile corridors of Stateville Prison. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a dull sheen over gray walls and bolted tables. Blake sat waiting in the visitor's room, his once smooth confidence replaced by hollow resignation. His hair had thinned, his hands shook slightly as he clasped them together. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice stripped of charm. I sat across from him, meeting his eyes without flinching. "To remind you that you didn't win. You didn't destroy her. You didn't destroy me. You built us into something stronger than you'll ever understand." For a flicker of a second, I saw fear in his eyes, the realization that his power had truly vanished. "You wanted freedom," I said quietly. "Now you have none. You wanted wealth. You're bankrupt. You wanted control, and now every breath you take belongs to someone else's permission. That's your legacy, Blake. Nothing. He looked down, defeated. I stood and walked away, never looking back. Our story didn't end there, though. Olivia's recovery continued one determined day at a time. There were nights when nightmares woke her, screaming days when her leg refused to cooperate, and moments when her faith in people wavered. But through it all, she refused to let her pain define her. We began speaking together at community centers and women's shelters, telling her story not as victims, but as survivors. Olivia spoke first always. Her voice would tremble at the beginning, then steady as she recounted what happened, how love had turned into control, how she ignored her instincts, how silence almost cost her life. When she finished, I would stand and speak as a mother. Not the mother who once stayed polite for appearances, but the one who learned that silence protects no one. Strength. I would tell the audience, isn't suffering quietly. It's raising your voice, demanding answers, and refusing to look away. Letters began pouring in. Women wrote to say they had left abusive relationships, exposed fraud, reclaimed their confidence. One woman, 73 years old, wrote, "I thought it was too late for me, but you showed me that it never is." Olivia framed that letter on her desk. Life moved forward. It wasn't perfect, no life ever is, but it was ours again. We traveled to Paris 2 years after the accident, walking those same cobblestone streets that once carried my guilt. Olivia moved slower, her limp faint but visible, yet her laughter was free. We bought matching leather journals and wrote inside them for every woman who thought she couldn't start over. Strangers often approached us now. "You don't know me," they'd say, "but I know your story. I left because of you." Olivia always smiled gently and replied, "No, you left because of you." Blake's name faded from headlines, but our message didn't. Olivia launched a foundation to support survivors of financial and emotional abuse, channeling the proceeds from her art sales into counseling and education programs. Her paintings traveled across the country from Chicago to New York to Los Angeles, each one a visual chronicle of healing. 2 years to the day after the crash, we returned to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Room 412 was occupied by another patient, but as we passed, Olivia stopped and pressed her hand against the wall. "I used to think that was the room where my life ended," she said softly. "Now I think it's where my new one began." Tears pricked my eyes, but this time they weren't from grief, they were from gratitude. As we stepped back into the spring sunlight, I realized that Blake's greatest miscalculation hadn't been underestimating my resolve. It was underestimating the resilience of women everywhere. Because when one of us speaks, it gives another the courage to do the same, and soon silence itself begins to break. Olivia squeezed my hand as we crossed the street together. "You kept your promise, Mom," she said. "So did you?" I replied. We walked on side by side, two women who had faced darkness and built light from its ashes. If this story moved, you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true stories of strength, justice, and second chances. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Rebecca's place?